Hello, this is a Homebhoys Extra. I'm sitting in the heartland of Edinburgh at the minute, awaiting Jackie McNamara, so we'll just talk to Simon Donnelly at the minute. And as usual, he's late, but these top celebrities are always busy and things like that. So, the point being now, right away, we want to get into the relationship. So I want to ask you, Sid, about the under-21 game where you kind of first met and hooked up. What do you remember of that?
I think it was a Toulon. Went away to the French tournament at the end of the season, and we ended up rooming together. And it was really just a friendship that started there. I'm going to share this. He asked for my boots. It was for a younger cousin. I wind him up nowadays that he was asking for my boots, but that was the first kind of us coming together.
And Jackie would have been at Dunfermline then,
he was
right?
at Dunfermline at the time. So again, this was the first time we'd kind of met through the football. And I just remember him asking for my boots, I think for a younger cousin. I'd broke in at Celtic at the first team at the time, and his cousin, I think, was a big Celtic fan. And then a few months later, obviously, he joins the club, and the friendship kind of just took on from there.
Magic. When he actually joined the club, you had been there for a few years. Were you kind of like a shoulder to lean on to tell him the score?
I think possibly. I think it was more obviously a familiar face that he'd met 5 or 6 months previous. I think that was it first and foremost. We're around about the same age. There was still 2 or 3 boys, Brian McLaughlin's and Stuart Gray's that were there at the time that had come through the ranks with myself. But as I say, we just hit it off, and for a guy coming into the team, you always want to make the new signing welcome. And it was a lot easier for me because he was of the same age group.
And at that time, was there any, it seems to be a modern thing, I don't know what to ask you, but is there any kind of initiation ceremony at Celtic among the players? Nah,
not really. I think nowadays, the last few years that's kind of came into it, the singing on the first trip away and stuff like that. There was no real, I think back in those days, you were expected maybe to go up and sing a karaoke song at the Christmas do. I don't think there was anything, when you joined the club. I think that's more of a more recent thing that's come into football.
And of course, it didn't take long for Jackie to kind of hit the ground running. You were obviously more established. But going back to when you started, can you remember how you got your chance, how Lou McCarry told you?
I think I remember Lou. I was training with the reserves, and I remember Lou coming over. We were doing some shooting practice towards the end of a training session. And I've put one in the top corner, and Lou's more or less said something, can you do that again? And quite luckily I did it again, because normally 9 times out of 10 I'd hit the supporters club at the back of Barrowfield with it, but I put it in the top corner again, and whether that wee bit just caught his eye, I don't know, because after that then I started training with the first team. And I think I remember actually our current assistant manager, John Collins, saying you're going to be involved at the weekend here against Hibs. Whether he'd heard something. Still at that time I didn't really buy into it. I was just happy to be training with the first team. But to cut a long story short, I was involved in the squad on the Saturday, sure enough. I had the press at my door up at my parents' house in the afternoon, wanting my take on it. And I came off the bench on the Saturday at Easter Road.
And what do you remember about that day at Easter Road? I mean, I was at the game, and obviously what I would remember is you had a wee turning shot after coming on, which for a drab 0-0 was probably the only good thing that happened that day. Were you nervous? Were you...
Not really. Excited. I wouldn't say I was nervous. Just excited to get my chance. Came off the bench. I think on the far side, I think it was Willie Miller clattered me. I remember thinking back, or people telling me that I think David Provan had commented on commentary, welcome to the Premier League. And the shot that you're talking about there, they're the 2 things that kind of stick out for myself. But it was just the excitement of making the breakthrough into the first team.
And after that, I mean, was your life ever really the same again?
Probably not, because I kicked on for there and was fortunate enough to get, I think, 10-12 games before the end of the season and scored a few goals. And no, I don't think your life can be the same ever again after that. Once you break into the first team.
Yeah, especially when you're compared with Kenny Dalglish.
Aye, again, it's bizarre at the time, and people look back on it now. At the time, it really didn't affect me. Kenny Dalglish was a huge hero of mine. Influenced through my father going to the Scotland games.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy who, I grew up watching at Liverpool. And was, my idol. To be compared to that, it was a little bit embarrassing for me, but I just kind of got on with it. I think now looking back on it, it's what happens, regularly when any young guy breaks on the scene. They always are compared to so and so and whatever. But no, it never really affected us.
And obviously Lou left that summer. Tommy came in. What were the differences that you noticed coming back?
I think Tommy came in with Billy in that summer, and I think the relationship he had, with the club, with the young boys in particular, he was very much a father figure to us young boys coming through, and little bits of coaching that he could help us with. Me personally, he took me away from the playing at the centre forward role and developing this right side of midfield. Maybe with my frame, taking me out of the fire a wee bit and playing you on the right where you can maybe enjoy a wee bit more time on the ball. It certainly worked for me, and I enjoyed my time there. Under Lou, again, with the excitement of just coming into it, I can't really, with my memory, recall too much, the intricacies of it. It was really just go and play, and for the 5 or 10 games there that I went and played and enjoyed it centre forward, it was great. When Tommy came in, he started working at my game a wee bit, and you started thinking about your game a wee bit more.
And I suppose, you could argue that season was probably one of the worst seasons in Celtic history, particularly playing at Hampden. What was that actually like as a player?
Looking back, it was horrible. I picked up a hamstring injury just into the season. I came back on the back of bursting onto the scene the year before. It's very much a season that I try to forget. I think Peter Grant was pulling my leg at the time that he'd scored one goal, and that was one more. He'd never outscored a Celtic striker in any season that he'd played in, because I never scored that season.
I know.
So it was one of the ones that I was quite happy to see the back of. I think one of the highlights possibly for me was the introduction of Van Hooijdonk, a quality player coming into the team and giving us a real boost. But I think everybody towards the end of that season had one eye on getting back to Celtic Park. Definitely.
But what was one thing I wanted to pick up there when you said you didn't score? You almost scored at the end of that season. It went on off a Rangers player.
That's right, yeah.
You celebrated like you scored.
Yeah. No, I think it was Craig Moore that went in off. I think I broke down the right and managed to get my head up and tried to cross it into the box. I'd presume for McLaughlin or Van Hooijdonk, who was approaching for the other side, and it's went in off Craig Moore. And unfortunately, that was the closest I got to scoring against Rangers.
We'll pull you up on that later. But one last thing I want to pick up about that point was you mentioned Van Hooijdonk. Now, you've said to me before the influence he had on people like you and younger players, very almost Cantona-esque at Man United.
Aye, again, looking back in that, I really do feel that. The guy came in, football's a team game, and when you get guys like that joining the team, it can only improve your game. Watching how these guys go about it, watching the way they train. In terms of Pierre, it was back for an hour after training, practising free kick after free kick. He went on, in my opinion, to be better than the likes of Beckham, for free kicks. If you watch, anybody wants to YouTube Pierre's free kicks, and there was a real influence there on how to go about it, and I enjoy playing with him, and I put him up there with one of the best that I've played with.
Obviously, I say we were all glad to see the back of that season and get back to Celtic Park and things like that. But I don't think any of us thought just how good it was going to be the following season. And for me, one of the standout games where I think we progressed forward 3 years in one game was when we drew 3-3 at Ibrox. Again, as has been kind of haunted yours through your career, you passed the ball to Andy Tom for the first goal, Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
I mean, what part of that season did you start to realise that we were onto something here?
I think quite early on. I think we were in Germany that pre-season, and Andy Tom came in to join Pierre, and obviously the rest of the guys that were there before. I remember the real confidence and belief from myself, and it must have been right through the team, turning up wherever we were going that season, thinking and expecting to score 3-4 goals.
Yeah.
And the enjoyment and the freedom that we were given to go and play, it can only really be eclipsed for me by the 98, because we won the league.
And
I think the enjoyment of playing in that team, and the amount of people that, you know, reflect on it now to me, a lot of Celtic fans actually pick that season out.
Yeah. I mean, I think the context there for me is the fact that we probably hadn't played like that for 7 years, and it was a breath of fresh air to go and thrash Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen. Obviously we never quite got close to Rangers at that point, but with the success, of course, comes pressure, and if people say it's a hope it kills you. I mean, what was it like to try and transform yourself as a player to someone who was just, you know, you want to get in, you want to score goals, you want to play games, to actually being, right, I now need to be a winning Celtic player?
But that was always the expectancy. I mean, I think you touched on the really poor season before that, and the really poor period probably for Celtic in their history when I broke in. But the expectancy was still there. It's still Glasgow Celtic. It was just the enjoyment of us starting to turn it and play football that we all believed. It's been spoke about over the years, the Celtic way, whatever way you want to describe it, but that fluent, exciting, fast football, and it was just a joy to be involved in it. I think I've spoke to you before. My regret is, and probably most of that team is, that, you know, Tommy didn't go on to lift a title here, because that team probably deserved to win something.
It's actually, I mean, I've said this to you before, mostly when I'm pissed, that I think that Tommy Burns started the modern Celtic as we now are, broke us out of the kind of the history. And I think that the one game that epitomised that more than ever was at Easter Road in December '95, where Jackie scored, you scored, Phil scored, Pierre scored. I want to take you back to that goal that Jackie scored, because you made the pass of an incredible move. First of all, did you mean the pass?
Of course I did.
Could you believe Jackie hit a volley like that?
I couldn't at the time. I thought maybe take a touch and go in and goal, but he obviously decided I'm going to have a smash with this, and I think that was his first goal for Celtic. You might correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a great move, and it probably just epitomised, you know, the style of football we were playing at the time. Go to Easter Road, which at times it wasn't an easy place to go, but we were going there and really expecting to turn teams over, and we were doing that. So it was a total joy to be involved. Pierre had come in just before that, and you know, it was a real side that I look back on with fond memories.
I mean, it was certainly that day. What I remember about it was, obviously there was a huge Celtic support there, but there was a belief that started to instill amongst the Celtic supporters that, listen, we're signing Pierre, we're signing Andy Tom, but there's 3 guys here, young guys who are coming in together. And that day it just seemed to click. And as you say, there's something about Celtic, I think, that when the fans and the players are united, it's pretty hard to stop.
No, totally. I mean, I think it's really important, and maybe we're getting away with it a wee bit nowadays, but it's important to have that identity between the team and the support. You look at the Man United team that we touched on there with Cantona and the young boys coming through, and I think a wee bit of that's been lost over the years for whatever reason. When you look at the Man United team of now, it's unrecognisable to having 4 or 5 homegrown players there. And whether we get these days back, I don't know, but at that time to come through, you know, shoulder to shoulder with the Donnellys, McNamaras, McLaughlin's who came through the ranks with me, it was just boys enjoying their football and going and playing, and a freedom there under Tommy to go and express ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Now, obviously, Tommy ended up leaving, and I think you just said that the first time you saw Wim Jansen was him walking across a field.
I down onto the training pitch.
So, what was it like? I mean, this would probably have been the first foreign manager you played under, and what was the differences?
The differences. I think he still wanted to play that free flowing. What was it? What was I saying there?
Sorry, folks, Mr. McNamara interrupted us here. But anyway, we're talking about differences with Wim Jansen.
Wim, I think he had similar styles in terms of wanting to get the ball down and play as Tommy. There was small tweaks in training. I think he brought in something where he regarded maybe his first team against the guys that were trying to get in the team. Sometimes he'd play that against each other, and that sometimes, we touch on Sifji and Izagiri's thing yesterday. We had a few instances like that at the time because of that, but I think he was wanting to try and get the intensity. If you had your place in the team, you had to hold on to it. If the guys didn't have the place, they wanted to fight to get that place. And it brought out a kind of game mentality in training. So it was just wee things like that, but the whole philosophy was still the same, to go and play football, and just that freedom to go and play again. I think the ignorance of us at the time was, with him walking out, the tracksuit on that time you're referring to. Guy played in 2 World Cup finals. So he could play and he knew the game. But at that first meeting, that was overlooked.
Do you think football players are like that? They're quite dismissive of guys if they didn't really know them?
Well, I think he's coming from another country, and you're not going to really. The names get thrown about, the media at the time, speculation who's coming in. Once he becomes the manager, you're like, right, okay, is he going to like me as a player? Am I going to be part of his plans? I think players can be quite selfish that way. But then when you take a step back and you look beyond the curly hair and the Celtic shell suit that he was wearing, there's a World Cup finalist twice there. So he's played at the top, the very top, and knew what he was talking about.
And of course, that season, certainly as a supporter, was the most high pressure season I could ever recall, and I think we'll ever get, possibly until we may go on to win 10 in a row currently. But how aware of that as players were you, and also how much did you do to make the foreign players aware of that?
I think that was maybe down to the more experienced players in the team to make them aware of that. I think we were a new team, a lot of new guys had come in, we were gelling. I look back at it now and I think we'd have handled it differently now, with the enormity of it and understanding what it was all about, whether we were just caught up in it. The only time I really felt it was going down to the last 2 games, when Dunfermline pegged us back, and then the relief when Harold scored the second. I'd come off for Harold, and it was the first time that you felt, I can't affect this anymore. I'm sitting here with 60,000 supporters. I'm a supporter now, and that's where the nerves kicked in. Up until then, you were kind of caught up in it. As I say, I think maybe nowadays, looking back on it, I would have, there'd have been maybe a wee bit more nerves with the realisation of what it meant.
I mean, there's 3 things I want to pick out that season. The first one is, I think, the first time the fans had a genuine belief about the team was a 2-2 draw against Liverpool at Celtic Park. You scored, and Jackie scored as well, another volley. That must have given the team an enormous belief.
That was a turning point. I really felt we did a couple of good results in Europe, and that was where we thought, up against a decent Liverpool team, Michael Owen just coming on the scene, I thought we can go and do something here. I think everybody felt that after it, albeit we get knocked out. We really took a lot for that to kick on and believe that we can go and win this.
The second game I want to fast forward to is sandwiched between 2 defeats to Rangers, 1 in the league, 1 in the cup, was a game at Rugby Park, which again as fans, the pressure was just absolutely enormous. Come up with the goods that night. I mean, we spoke about this before, but how long was it before you realised the enormity of that goal? And what would have meant if you hadn't scored it?
Well, again, Kilmarnock wasn't one of our best places to go.
No.
In my experience up to then, we had some really difficult games down there. So to go down there and get the victory, obviously be part of that, it was great to get the goal. And looking back on it maybe later on, it was a significant one for us, but at the time it was relief to get the result because it hadn't been our favourite away ground up until then.
You've quite a few games down there where the goalie was the difference between us and 3 points.
And just you're thinking, right, we've got to get back down here and the pressure's right on. So it was just relief to get the result. And obviously to be on the score sheet against one of my old teammates, Big Marsh.
So this is a two-part bit. First of all, I need to clear this up. You scored the goal at Dunfermline, second last game of the season. Can you ever forgive Jonathan Gould for coming off his line for that?
No.
You could have been the guy.
He was the guy that took it to the next week. That's been a wee bit unfair and Gouldy, but I pulled him up for it recently at a charity game. But yeah, a guy called Falconbridge rose, and well, the rest is history. But for a spell there, I thought my goal was going to see us over the line.
And previous to that, 24 hours before, can you tell me the reaction amongst you, Jackie, players, when you heard Kilmarnock had won at Ibrox?
I was in my car. I don't know where I was going. I was going to shops or something, obviously, preparing for the next day. And I think, is it Ali Mitchell?
Aye.
Scored. And I was celebrating in the car. And I phoned him and this is it. We go to East End Park tomorrow and win. That's it, done. And it was a huge boost for every one of us. But then you fast forward the 24 hours and it was a huge come down after going there. I think everybody expected us to go there and win the league that day. The sun was out. I think every Celtic supporter possible had squeezed into East End Park. But the bus ride home was terrible because we had to reflect on what a missed opportunity and it was going to go right down to the wire the following week.
So you've obviously got that massive disappointment, as we all did, coming out that day, Scots on hot day. How did the team pick itself up before St Johnstone? Can you divulge that?
The team picked up because the way we picked up was we did what we did all season. We went out on the Tuesday for something to eat and a few beers. And looking back on it now, the game has changed. It wouldn't happen now, but it really brought us together. It was a bond that we still have, that group of players. But if it hadn't went the right way,
you'd have been
the repercussions. But as I say, that season, that's how we prepared. We worked hard. We went out on a Tuesday and a few of the young boys would go out on a Saturday. That was just the done thing. But that's what we did. We went out, we kind of got ourselves together. We had a good Tuesday night, came back in on the Thursday to prepare, and thankfully seen it over the line.
You managed to skate around that question, but I want to ask you specifically, did anything happen that night?
That night, what are you referring to? Sparkling water.
Aye, because I was told by maybe somebody close to the captain that certain people were trying to put Jonathan Gould's head between railings.
No, I think somebody, I think Gouldy did something that he'd never done up until then. I think he'd vouched or offered to pay and his bank card was out, and I think there was a certain player threatening to put it down a drain at the end of the night. But I just listen, it was very much in jest, and I think that just it was the bond, with that group of players, which I think you need at times.
And obviously people know what happened at the game, spoke about it, and I don't know what to kind of label you as a rampant alcoholic, but I believe there was quite a celebration after the game.
Yeah,
against St Johnstone.
I think it's fair to say a few of us had a few refreshments. We were actually going out to Portugal to play in a game the night after, or 2 nights after, and it's safe to say there was a few of us I'd say 50% for that game.
We'll come on to that. I mean, I believe you were at a restaurant in Newton Mearns, right? And there was dancing on tables and all that kind of thing. And then pretty much from there you went to Lisbon. Were there any songs sung in Lisbon?
I think there might have been one or two, yeah.
By you?
By me?
Yes.
Wait,
by the way, I'm not going down the party songs line here, by the way. I'm talking more Freddie Mercury.
Alright. I don't recall. I think the man who's going to speak to you now rocked a place, I seem to remember, in Portugal. Singing something.
And to be semi-serious, you had no idea when you went to Lisbon that Vim was away at that point?
No. I remember us having a meeting, the players, in one of the bedrooms in the hotel, discussing what people had heard, but no, we didn't realise. We didn't realise. We went over there. It was a thing to do with the Cadete signing. I think it was a game that we had to see through. It wasn't the ideal timing, obviously, in the back is just winning the league for the first time in 9 years. And the celebrations that were going on, but we had to do it. We had to get out there, and but it was all of a shock. It all came as a shock. I must admit.
And we'll talk to Jackie soon, but there's two things I want to ask you before we finish up here. You left the following year, and you were kind of labelled a wee bit as being greedy. Can you just clear up something that Fergus McCann said, that you wanted the same money as Henrik Larsson to stay?
Aye, that was just. I think that is a wee bit played out, but I think it was compared to I'd asked for Henrik's wages, which if I was the guy in the street picking up the paper, I wouldn't have been happy about. But it was very much in relation to maybe wages that Henrik had come in on before,
as opposed to the big contract,
to what he got, after he performed. But again, these kind of tactics get played at certain times. I've seen it before and I've seen it after. Unfortunately, that was my turn to kind of be on the end of it. It was a decision I made at the time, and it was one that I wanted to give the English Premiership a go. And looking back at it now, did I ever enjoy my football as much after it? Possibly not. Did I ever play with guys as talented again? Possibly not. But you make these decisions in life, and I've got no regrets. My son was born down in Sheffield, and I've got a lot of good fond memories for there. So it's just one of these things that sometimes players or managers are on the wrong end of something that's put out in the paper which isn't entirely true.
And one last thing I want to ask you, this is a request to somebody else, a mutual friend. You ever sneaked into the Barrowlands?
To see who?
Stone Roses.
I don't know if I sneaked in.
No?
I think I've said to you before, my memory's pretty poor, but
no kind of a funny exit through Baird's Bar?
Yeah, now that I recall, yes. Who was that through again?
Well, that would reveal the source of the thing, but as a top football player, why did you need to sneak in?
I don't know. The Stone Roses were the Stone Roses.
I know you're a huge fan.
The tickets would have probably been gold dust. I'd have done my usual, no plan to get tickets and then try to blag something at the last minute.
But so you can confirm that you did?
I was definitely at that gig, and now that you mentioned Baird's Bar, I think I did, yeah.
Great, fantastic. We've nailed all the rumours. So your name is now as a top international jibber. What more can you say to that?
Not a lot. Right. Who was that again? GP.
We have now been joined by the fashionably late Mr. McNamara, looking tanned and well.
Been at the gym.
He's been at the gym as well. And first thing I want to ask you, Jackie, is regarding the first time you met this guy under 21s in Toulon. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about that?
I was at Dunfermline at the time, and obviously he was the big thing in Scotland at the time. The new Kenny, nonsense. But no, I think he was the big thing at that time. Quiet. I was rooming with Stevie Crawford, and it it was one of my wife's family who's obviously a big Celtic fan, and asked him for his boots, which he kindly gave us after the tournament finished.
And he says that he's never let you forget that since.
Aye, well, it's I like to think I've repaid that in different ways, you know. over the last 20 years.
20 years, aye. And so obviously it was 6 months later you signed for Celtic. Was it a good thing that he was there and
I think it helped. It helped enormously. Just to be fair, it was going in there. It was pretty daunting for myself. I know 21 is maybe not seen as a young boy, but coming from the first division with Dunfermline, and, you know, at a time where I was just starting to spend a little bit of money, not at the same level as the mob across the road, but you know, they were starting to you know, buy like say Andy Toms, and they spent money on Pierre, so the club was starting to turn. I went to speak to him. It was just the main stand and the bit across from corner flag to corner flag, and I stand with Tony Burns in the director's box and telling us they've seen this place with 60,000 people here, the plans, and how the club was going, and everything he said from then was absolutely spot on, and it was the best thing ever happened to us.
I mean, had you made your mind up before you'd even met Tony?
Yeah, to be honest, I got wind the day before at Dunfermline. I heard that they were in, and there's stuff coming back that Dunfermline wanting too much money, and you know, the figures there of wanting $1 million and stuff like that for somebody I thought was crazy, you know, considering what wages I was on, and in the first division there was a prospect still for me at that time, although I played 21s and played 75 games for Dunfermline, still a prospect and a gamble for Celtic to pay that kind of money. But you know, the night before I was going to speak to him and do a medical, I was in the picture house at Dunfermline with my wife and watching Braveheart. It was at the time. It was a 3-hour film, and the wee pictures in Dunfermline, you actually had a break halfway through. It was that long, but it was just I couldn't really focus on the film because I was so excited about the next day about going to Celtic Park, and you know, I didn't realise at that point that I'd be playing the next night either. You know, I just thought we're going to sign there, and we were in, done a medical, and I was in the squad for the game that night and played.
Which was at Brockville, right?
Yeah. While I was in Dublin, looking around the stadium, someone broke out my dad's car and stole my boots, my shin pads and my soap bag. So I was terrified.
Was it him taking the boots back?
So it was a bit hard enough to make a debut, but wearing somebody else's boots and shin pads, and it was but you know, I just got on with it as pretty much what I'd done.
And did it help you, the fact that your father played for Celtic? I mean, give you advice and
I think it probably did. Although he was always, my dad's quite a modest person. You know, he'd tell you he didn't really play a lot for Celtic. He joined at the tail end of the Lisbon Lions and some special players there. He got very unfortunate, I think, through injury. That his career, and Hibs, he'll tell you that Hibs saved his career with the physio and his cruciate. So, but I think my dad's always been. He's never been. I think he's always been there. He's never really spoke out in things. You know, he's more supportive than in terms of advice. He just let me go on with things, even from a young age.
I suppose that it could be quite. Having a domineering father who's achieved might be quite hard for a younger player coming through and having to live up to that kind of expectation.
Yeah, I think you see that with most parents now with kids. You know, my son is only 11. He's playing football now in pro youth for Hibs, and I go and watch him, but I'm never discourage him all the time. You see their parents like shouting at their kids. I tell them what they should be doing, and they don't know themselves. They're reliving what they wanted, whereas I know through experience that my son's learning every day. Every time he kicks a ball, every time he does something wrong, he's learning more than what he does right. So, and that's what I keep telling him, working the things that his weaknesses, not just his strengths. And be honest, he's got a big heart, the kid, my son, and we've got high hopes from him that he'll get what he wants out of it.
Sid said he likes a tackle like his father, so...
Yeah, he's very tenacious, and me and my dad watched him last week. He's playing up at Trent, and he had a couple of challenges, but he won the ball.
That's my boy.
People say it's a dying art, the tackling, but he reads the game well for a young kid. Where they play him in defence now, but when he moves further up to midfield, maybe I think he'll be a midfielder.
Good. So I want to take you back to a game which we spoke about already and get your take on it, which was at Easter Road in 1995, where this man here set you up for a volley at Easter Road, which I've said to him a million times, I think that was the start of something. You know, I believe that Tommy Burns created the modern Celtic as we now know it is. But that day, you scored, he scored, Phil scored, Pierre scored. What do you remember about your goal that day?
I remember, I think first of all everything we'd done was from the training field. A lot of time we spent afternoons working with Tommy and Starkey.
Yeah.
Working right side and working down the other side with Phil and Tosh. I was always, my first thought was to find him, work with him, or
let's finish that.
To find Pierre and his feet, and to strike his feet early, which we did. So we went to Pierre's feet and followed the run on, and Simon side footed it over there, and the good thing it was run off Darren Jackson, which I still remind him, and Jim Leighton was in goals as well. So I think in a lot of ways it was really significant for me, because it was at Easter Road. It was my first goal for Celtic. Hibs rejected me as a kid for being too small. And there's a lot of things there that it was so pleasing. It's and just got my first goal for Celtic.
Sid says that he was amazed you volleyed it. He thought you'd take a touch.
I thought you might take it in.
But I will say about the Dan Jackson thing, in the charity games I've saw you just there seems to be a repetitive thing that you just slag him constantly for his lack of work rate and basically everything he does on a football pitch.
I think we just like winding him up.
Aye.
Simon will tell you, when we played against him, we hated him.
He said that, yeah.
It's, I think, like fans do at the side of the park. As players, he was a moaning face, greeting face, in your face. A few times you wanted to do him. There's been a few players like that over the years, that one or two I've got a good few challenges in, to say the least, but Dan was in that category.
Yeah.
And when he came with us to Celtic, I used to travel through with him and got on great with him. I mean, through the problems he had with his brain operation and stuff, and I had to drive him even more. He couldn't drive for 3 months, so I learned him how to do a lot of things after but no, we got on well, and we've been friends ever since.
And obviously, when you joined Celtic in '95, which they're just starting to emerge for a dark period, what kind of influence did Tommy Burns have on you?
I think massive. I think even to this day, the things that I've taken with him, both from him, with me in management, demands, expectations, how I want the game to be played. And I think looking back, his vision, his philosophy in football, and I think the biggest thing is, the biggest regret is he didn't win the league, because I think at that time it would have changed the whole course of Scottish football. Yeah. Because you look at it now, we're 20 years on, but we're no further forward. No. We've brought in some fantastic players over the years, the Larsons, Gascoignes, Loudons, but that's gone now. We try to buy it. And we've spent 2.5 years up the road trying to working things up the road, getting to a point where you feel we can go and challenge, and unfortunately, with the problems we faced up there, with previous problems with debt and trying to buy success, it doesn't work. You have to grow it, you have to nurture it, you have to manage people, and doing things the right way. And for me, Scottish football at the moment is all based on fear and survival.
I mean, that team, with a manager like Tommy, kind of 95 to 97, would it be fair to say it was quite a few fiery characters obviously people like DeCanny will come in, Tommy's niece drinking Violet, Peter Grant. I mean, they must have been quite a testing dressing room at times.
It was, but I think you're young, you don't look at it that way. But when you step back for you're older, you realise what they were as winners. Mm-hmm. They have that fire, the passion. Tommy Bunch used to say the fire in the belly, and it's something I use all the time now with youngsters. They've got the fire in the belly. In society, the kids have the fire in the belly now. And the biggest one that I've worked with in the last 4.5 years in management has been Andy Robertson.
Yeah.
The kid has a fire in the belly to succeed. It reminds me a lot of myself growing up. Just wants, no matter who's there, the training every day, he wants it.
Yeah.
He wants to win every day. Somebody gets in his way, what you do. And that's the mentality for me is the most important thing in football. The mentality of the boys that just left us to go to Celtic.
What I'm starting to notice is that he basically repeats everything that you say, and that you're basically his mentor. Is that like Sid?
I think both of the same beliefs.
Alright, okay. Yeah. We'll come on to that in a bit. But obviously, one question I asked Sid, 97-98 when Janssen comes in, how aware were you of the high pressure you faced that season, and how much did you try and impress that on maybe the foreign players that were in the team?
I think, obviously, first of all, I knew the enormity of the season, because it was in your face every week. The build up to it, all the talk, even the wee bits of stick at your head when Richard Goff scored at Ibrox and put his two hands up with 10 in a row, and you go, right, we'll see. You know, that's obviously the foreign lads didn't understand it as much, maybe coming in like Sir Harold, or the importance of it. You know, there's a couple of games there where a game at Tynecastle when we absolutely battered them.
Yeah.
But I scored that the won a lot out, missed a couple of chances, there was so many chances, and the referee kept playing to Hearts got another chance to score. And he talks about openly now about doing that.
That's correct, Bobby Tate.
Yeah. And interviewed after the game on the telly, I was going to smash the bottle over a wee guy's head for the equaliser. But that's the feeling I had, you know, because they want the importance of that.
Yeah. But I mean, you were involved in a couple of pivotal moments in that season. Firstly, you crossed the ball to Alan Stubbs last minute against Rangers. I mean, the enormity of that equaliser.
That was massive. I think that one, I think the turning point for us with the belief was the 2-0 in January with Burley and Lambo's screamer. Because to be honest, for me, we're never better than us. Yeah. They seem to have a wee Indian sign which can happen. Sometimes I'm a great believer in things are meant to be in football. Things don't run for you. As we've experienced in management in the last start of this season and wee bits at the end of the season, it's not your time. And that's the way I look at it with Tommy. It wasn't meant to be, but I think for most people, fans, me, players under him, you know, it was a really enjoyable time, and it's a time in Edinburgh, and it wasn't a successful one because we didn't win the league. But you know, I came in there and I was fully enjoyed my time there. Intense training, intense pressure, intense everything we've done. But I think it's set me up for the rest of my career.
And I'll take you back to something that I said regarding the second last game of the season against Dunfermline. Sid said that he's never going to forgive Jonathan Gould for basically getting an arse of the Falconbridge goal. I've tried to push you in the past. He could have been the man that stoked 10 in a row, but you said that you would have loved it if it was him. How were you able to take yourself for the despair of that to push yourself for St Johnstone?
Yeah, well, actually, I had a supporters do that night, which, you know, we could have won the league that night, but I had a supporters do in Linwood to go to.
Jesus.
Which I went to and got up there and went, oh, this is going to be tough. But we went in there and the place was rocking. They were all obviously there, but realised it was all about next week now. You know, that day had gone, even though it was still fresh in everybody. And it helped me. I came in the next day and I hadn't, that whole week I never slept. right up to the St Johnstone game in the relief. I think you can see when the second goal went in, they put a cross for Harold. I just ran it across to the fans at the corner flag. The importance for not just winning the league or my first, but I think for everybody, the history, everything that supports the club. And I think everything that was worked on, the stadium, Tommy, the foundations, everything, it all made it. It was meant to be. You know, they were never going to get the 10. And it was a perfect way to do it at Celtic Park with the full house at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I said before that I've never, as a supporter, I've never felt pressure like that day ever since. And maybe if we manage to 10 in a row in the next 5 years, then I might feel it again. But you said yourself, you made the second goal. Just still can't believe the injection of pace Brattbach made. I mean, it was relief, wasn't it? It was more relief than joy.
I think big time. I think you know, it was, at that point it was just about winning that game. They had a couple of little scares in the game at 1-0 because it was still in the balance. But you know, the second goal just settled everybody down.
Yeah.
The fans there, and I think the celebrations after it were something I always remember as well.
Well, that's what's going to come on to, because the relief soon turned into celebration, and one or two light refreshments that night, which led you, of course, straight on to Lisbon. And I believe, I've been told, I should say, that you regaled the crowd with a song.
The crowd? Aye.
And that boozer.
Yeah.
Can you remember what it was?
Yeah. The karaoke one in Lisbon, aye.
Will you tell us what it is?
It was a dancey one. It's not a song I know well, but it was on and I just got.
You nailed it.
Aye, it was. What was it called? Free from Desire. Free from Desire. I don't know what the song's called.
Aye. No, I thought I was singing back. I wasn't singing, was it?
No, I nailed it. Actually, the place. I'm just going with the words. Just to all the Portuguese people.
See, the thing I wanted to ask you, right, is I think a lot of fans will be quite surprised at that, because you're a very laid back guy. And you mentioned your father. I mean, you're saying you didn't shout to the rooftops, but there's definitely a side to you that there's a character that comes out when you're comfortable, I think, and obviously came out that night.
I think people that know us. I think when you're in the spotlight and in the media, you have to be very careful everything you say and be diplomatic with everything, which is, I think, part of the reason why I wrote a kind of sitcom thing, just to show a different side that when you're coming in there, what you see is reality. Because if I came out every time and spoke the truth and everybody, you'd be up in front of the panel every week, especially as a manager. You know, as a manager, they're tedious, boring press conferences 4 times a week, and they ask you the same crap every game. And you got to speak to the same people, and you know they've all got agendas, and you're just basically playing the game.
Yeah.
Whereas the people outside of football, my family, my friends, they know as a jovial kid side to me as well. That I like to have a laugh. I don't watch scary films. Go to bed watching comedies every night. I like to be in a happy place.
So actually, just for me, is it true you're a huge fan of Adam Sandler?
Aye, amongst many others. I think I like all kind of comedies. Gervais, Fools and Horses. To say that's what I'm kind of passionate about. I like having a laugh.
See, you might think that I just know this stuff is massive research. It's him getting drunk and he just tells me this stuff. But it's one thing is really apparent is the same as what he says about this kind of basically bullshit side of football where everybody's turning out lines and bluffing.
Spin doctors.
Yeah. And you never play that game.
No. Because you become false.
Yeah.
And it's not me. I just go in there, try and be honest about it, answer the questions honestly, diplomatically. Obviously, not saying things that's going to bring me into bother. But you just play the game. I don't need to go and put spin in it. Hopefully people sense and common sense prevails. And to be honest, there's part of me wanted to come out a number of times and start stating facts or sticking up for myself when it comes down to leaving Thistle or my time I left Celtic or even just now like having left United for what I went up there and done in 2.5 years and stating the facts and what we had to do. But then they realise there's no point, because you never convince people that don't want to be convinced.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you just step back for it and let people believe the most important people in my life, my friends and family, who know the truth about my departure at Celtic, how I left Thistle, what I started with Thistle, what I've done there, and said I would do. And the same United, and it'll be the same whatever we do next venture. But I'll go and do my best along with people that I trust.
Absolutely. I'll take you back a wee bit. I'll rattle through some of these. Martin O'Neill, what was it like under him?
I think it was obviously a successful one, first and foremost. There's things I've taken from Martin. He's very much a motivator, very, very intelligent man. He had, it was a strange one. Sometimes I would think I couldn't read him, At a time there when I found myself at the team, I went to see him. I said, well, I don't want to stay here and be just here because I'm at Celtic. If I don't want me to play, I'll leave. I don't want to just take a wage. They went, no, I want you to stay. And every games they put me in, put me captain against Dundee United. I scored man of the match. The next game I'm leaving in the stand. I'm going, why? The game in Ajax away, the 3-1 game. I played there, played well. Said to me after the game, you were excellent, which played in the left of the three-way. In the next game against Aberdeen at home, I wasn't even on the bench. So, he brought other players in, but I think now in management, obviously I realise you're spending money on players in your position, you're going to play them. He changed the shape a bit, and I got injured away with Scotland, and he brought in Didi Agat at wing back against St Mirren, and I kind of lost my position there for a while. I had to reinvent myself. I think the turning point for me was with we got to the final at Boa Vista, because we couldn't win against Rangers at that point. We'd lost, I think, we had a bit of ending sign over us with McLeish. Yeah. And he went back to a 4. So he put me captain on Beach Ball Sunday, and we beat them. And we won the next, I think, 8 derbies. I might be wrong with that. But I think we won the next 8 in a row. We went back to the 4, and that was me re-establishing myself again. And he just started moving me about from right back to left centre half against Stuttgart to other different positions, midfield. But I found myself back in his plan, and kind of last season was more left back, Didi right back. But to be honest, I wasn't. I just loved playing wherever it was, and I didn't see it as a slight or moving position. I just felt, I wanted to play. I wanted to be part of it, and when he left, I had a good chat with him about it. After a testimonial, he said that I should have played you more, son, and it was really, really nice about it. But I had a lot of respect for him, and as I said, I think he was very good at identifying winners. Characters, Suttons, and Lennons, Thompsons, Hartsons, guys that win.
Do you think that's what Celtic needed at that time, prior to Martin O'Neill, and then these guys coming in, that kind of mentality?
Aye, because I think it's something that we were growing up with, and I think maybe it lost its way a little bit. But winners having to win, obviously, for me, we weren't judged in Scotland. As a Celtic player, I felt I was judged on Old Firm games and European games. Where sadly now that's not the case, because Rangers aren't Rangers anymore. They're not any standard at the moment. In European games, obviously they've not done anything in the last couple of years. In Finland, they're maybe not getting challenged. But the players there are getting judged in SPFL games when they shouldn't be.
There's one thing I wanted to ask you, and I know people would be expecting about leagues and cups, but is it true that you roomed with Bobo Baldi?
No, John Hartson.
John Hartson. Is it true you were there when Bobo Baldi exploded?
In the dressing room?
Yeah. Can you tell us about that? Because this has become a bit of a myth among the Celtic fans, and it'd be good to hear what actually happened and how mental he actually went.
I went mental. It was, I'd say, quite funny, but it was a Hibs game, Easter Road. Celtic Park. It was we lost a late goal. I think it was Bruni that scored that, actually.
I think you're right, man.
And we came in, and a couple of lads said something. Lenny had said something to him, and Stillian said something to him. Just as we were coming in the dressing room, and to be honest, I didn't think it was his fault. I'm normally quite critical of his defending at times, or working or covering up for him, Bobo. But I didn't think it was his fault on this occasion, and he just lost it. It took quite a few people.
Somebody told me it was like the Incredible Hulk throwing people away.
I always, because I sat as you came in, dressing room to the right, so it was like the two medical tables, the other two beds for doing the rubs, and John Roberts and Martin were in, Big John trying to stop him getting to Stillian. And Big Rabbi was in the hall. It was just loads of boys. I just sat down across the other side, and John Robertson came flying over the thing just in front of me. Just remember his eyes looking at me. If I see what happened there. But and just, everybody kind of dispersing, and Bobo, Big Hulk scream, and went out the room, and it just went silence.
Jesus, it was a fearsome sight. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about was Seville, and I've obviously been asked a million times about it, but I wanted to talk about logistically as a player what that was like. There was an enormous demand for tickets. There was all the hype pretty much for the time we beat Boavista. Was it difficult to focus on other games? I know we were going head to head with Rangers at the time, but for the minute we beat Boavista, Seville.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think it was for different reasons. I think the fans, I think everything generates from the fans. I think the players there, obviously, they one mind on it, and the league, obviously, we still felt we were what we would like anyway, no problem. But I think we played something like 13 games more than Rangers that season.
That's right.
But we beat them at Ibrox. Then we just felt obviously the most important thing for us was to win that, and for everything. It would have changed. It would have been unbelievable to win it. We knew the importance of it. Going there, the tickets, demands to. It was.
You must have people at you all the time.
I did, just people, and it was, we bought as many tickets. We had people there that asking for tickets, people we've not seen. But to be honest, it never really entered my mind that side. My mum wasn't well at the time.
Yeah.
She was. I think for me that was more important.
Yeah, of course.
The night before the final, I got a call. She was in hospital, and so my kind of mind wasn't always at that point.
Yeah.
She sadly passed away within a couple of weeks of that.
Yeah.
But I think my thoughts are different because of that. There would have been, but I remember just the drive going from Jerez to Seville.
Yeah.
It was just green and white everywhere, and it's something that we'll never forget. I think, like most of the players, have still got regrets, how it went, and you see that him managing Chelsea now and his antics, that night. He tried to create a fight going in at half time. The boy went over to us when he scored early, and he tried to pushing match in the tunnel, and you realise what the guy's all about to win. He wanted them to be no complacent second half. He wanted to start a fight with us going in. At the time you don't realise that, but then he's done that. You realise he's in for a game here. Then to be fair, we bounced back. Henrik just done what Henrik does, and we got into it. And to be honest, I came on for Lambo to mark Deco in the game, and I thought we were comfortable. I thought we turned it around, and I think the turning point was Big Bobo again. I think he let us down with diving in. Actually my first touch, I had a bad first touch in the game. I passed it across, and the boy, I think it was Onyechev, that could have been the end of me. He had a strike just past the corner. But I just
looked at your dad. Your dad looked at me.
But these wee things, I remember having an attempt at the cross as well, going into their area when it was 2-2, I think it was.
Aye.
And he put a ball across. But we were gutted, absolutely gutted after it.
I mean, does that, in terms of the sense of the occasion and the fans and all that, I would imagine that would give the players a window into just how big this could be, and if Celtic were competing. Because I remember Neil Lennon said it was good enough to play in the Youth Cup final, but today with Celtic was just incredible.
It was, but again I go back to Scottish football, I go back to the problems here that we face, and we're still not corrected it when we play the games. We're fighting every year to go and play European games when we're ready. We lost to Bâle in the qualifiers to get into the Champions League. We get put into that. Had we played Bâle a month later, we would have hammered them.
Aye.
And they don't realise that. So what you do, Scandinavians, everything else, the most important thing is for me, for a club like Celtic, is to play in Europe. So you prepare yourself the best you can, not going all the way around the world on tours. To prepare for games. It's start the league earlier. Start the league in the end of July. Get the qualifiers there. Summer football for Scotland, as much as we get the summer. Get the kids going to watch football. No floodlights and snotty noses in the winter. Games called off. The pitches are crap. Artificial pitches. We're going backwards. So we do the best thing that's going to maximise it for our game, to play football the right way, and it's to start the league earlier. Give them every opportunity to be what it is, to play properly, to get into the Champions League, because it's too important. It's too important to just, it'll be fine, we'll play 1 or 2 games, the first couple of games will be easy, but there's no easy games that we've seen in the last couple of seasons. And trying to qualify, you get to a point there, you even see it with the Europa games now, because going into Europe, the concentration levels have to be so much better, so much quicker than what you do, because they're as strong as you, they're quick as you, if not quicker and stronger. And they all know what they're doing, they all do their jobs, and if they're ahead of you in fitness, that's always a problem. Sharpness. And I go back to, even we were qualifying games we struggled. After that we got to Croatia. We weren't ready. We played the Irish side and we scraped past them because they weren't ready. We weren't ready, we weren't there. It's like a pre-season game, and the importance of it, people don't realise that. They should be doing this. We played a tournament in Dublin. We lost to Derry. Remember it? And I remember the follow-up with Vim that season. It was a year before, obviously. The follow-up with Vim. Everybody's panicking about the season ahead and the pre-season. We're not ready. And it's the same with qualifying for Champions League. We played Croatia a few weeks later. They were a really good sign. But I still feel if we played them later, we'd have won.
There's one last thing on Seville thing that I wanted to ask you was, obviously we played Kilmarnock on the Sunday. Do you think Chris Sutton was right, what he said? Dunfermline?
Do you know what? I think we sort of seen that, because word came back to us that they were the sports writers, the players there, and their players joked about it, or the manager joked about it, or something it was, and said, don't worry, you'll score one more news anyway. And that came back to the players' dressing room. So I think that was in his head. I would like to think it wouldn't be, but I always focus more on us, and I don't worry about other teams having to do it. If we take care of our business, then we should have been alright.
Yeah.
You know, the Kilmarnock game, and even later on, you look at the game against Motherwell, that was the lowest. That was the lowest point in my career. The game should have been 5 or 6-0. Never mind winning 1-0 and losing 2-1 with a couple of goals with Donnelly. That was.
There's one game I want to talk about lastly in 2003 which I've told him and I'll tell you I think was your best ever game for Celtic, which was 2003 October at Ibrox. We won 1-0, John Hartson scored. You played in the back three with Stan Barger and Chris Sutton, and you never gave him a sniff. I mean, that to me was a huge thing. You know, for Celtic supporters, you'd experienced it as players. There was a psychological thing with Rangers, and to go there and win that day and go past them in the league with a back three like that, no disrespect, but you know, it's City there and stuff. I mean, do you remember much about that game, or?
I do. To be honest, I think you remember the games that you enjoy.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I loved playing against them. I loved the hatred in it. I didn't. I loved the pressure. I loved the importance of it. The constant. I go back to concentration because that's what it is. And the times there when maybe I wasn't playing, I wasn't a good watcher.
Yeah.
You know, and I always felt I could influence goals going in, or covering for somebody, or getting a tackle in, or reading the game. And
Did it went wrong? I can't remember. You didn't ask for the tea direct.
You make me tea? I'll have tea again, that's fine. That's fine.
Unless you need to make one Stella.
Yeah.
You make me tea? I'll have tea, it's fine.
No. Do you want the tea? I'm not going to charge.
No, I'll have tea, man.
So I'm not going to charge tea, I just charge the water.
Cheers.
Yeah. I just thinking, I come here, I thought, I forgot about it. But it's straight. No, straight drink.
Yes. Sorry. Nice. For me, it was always the importance. I loved it. And when I left Celtic, that was the biggest thing I missed, was the old firm games. I loved them. I don't know. Again, it must be kind of, I don't know if it's a pressure thing or that butterflies in the tummy. In certain games, when they're playing in league games, didn't have that.
Yeah.
You know, had it in European nights and everything else. Maybe you know, wee bits in you that you don't miss. But the bits that I missed the most was the old fun games.
And do you remember almost scoring for the halfway line at Ibrox?
Donnelly.
What was the thinking behind that?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It's because you don't think. You know, when it's a thing that when you. I always look back at things.
So I'm not charging tea.
But I always seen myself as somebody else when they're playing. It's weird, but once you cross a line, you know, we're there before the game and we're laughing and joke. But once I was in the tunnel to start the game, you know, I see Scott Brown's a wee bit like that. He just stands there. There's no emotion. There's no.
Yeah.
You're thinking what you're doing, or you're in the zone, and that's something that for me was similar. And you look back there and there's bits there and going, I didn't do that. I didn't punch Mark Haitley in the purse.
But you never really, did you?
I don't know.
It was a sort of melee rather than a.
I honestly don't know.
But the photos suggest you did, obviously.
Exactly, that's.
And you've got that photo up in your house?
I've not got it up. Someone framed it and gave me it. I've not got it up. I think I'd be sending the wrong message to my kids. But even other things you've done is, I remember getting sent off later on in my career against Falkirk, and it was a bad challenge from Jim Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I came in after it with Yogi and I went, I never touched him. I get sent off and I looked at the attack and went, oh, for Jesus. But you know, you just you become, it's like somebody, you just do what's there at that time. And you've seen him scoring a goal in the final, you know, scoring goals.
And he was on his stag night.
Aye.
When you scored that was your first touch, right, in the cup final? Came on for Lubo.
Aye, it was 30 odd minutes.
And then
Honestly, there was, even there, I think, when coming on, I was disappointed not to start the game. But again, was focused coming on, wanted to do well and put the goal and put the ball through for Henrik for his one, and the 2 up. Again against Hibs, which another special moment for me as well.
Yeah.
My dad was in the Hibs end at the time, with his pals, so it was even more special. Again, you just become. I think it's weird when you look back and you see things like, I never done that, I don't remember that, I don't remember that challenge.
So when you look back on it, is it almost like looking at somebody else scoring the goal? Or?
I think so. Even because I remember scoring against Stranraer in the cup. I scored a few goals on the way up to that final. I scored away down at Stranraer, and I scored against Dundee United in the semi.
Aye.
And when I scored against Stranraer, Big Sutty hammered me for celebrating. But it was the same celebration, just about as I've done the other ones. It wasn't pre-planned, it was just a emotion.
So you started running
up and jump, put them up in the air. But Big Chris Sutton was giving me pelters. Look at the toys scoring against Stranraer, well done. You know, it's
Chris Sutton doesn't seem to enjoy anything.
To be honest, I think most boys that don't know him, he's actually very shy boy.
Really,
Intelligent lad, shy. So like with Simon that first came across with Darren, they're like, not sure how to take him, but I think once you know him, he takes a while to let you in. So I think we've got a lot of time and respect for him. He's a good guy, winner. I can't speak highly enough of him.
And one final individual thing I wanted to ask you was obviously about the testimonial leaving. Can you just clear up what actually happened when you left? Because there's a lot of nonsense that went about and things, and I'd like you to...
I think it's the same with everything. It's very difficult for people to understand. For me, I wanted to finish my career there.
Yeah.
And I asked for a 3-year contract. Year before, they gave me a 1-year contract when I was player of the year. I asked for a 3. And we get to the end of the season, and just before Martin left, he said to us, he pulled me in along with 4 others. And he said to Gordon, there's 5 players here that I think you should build your team around. Obviously, I was one of them. I will tell you the other 4, but they probably work out. And I was first to leave out the 5. So I maintain that we had my testimony. We were over in Galway for a golf thing after it.
Yeah.
And myself, Lenny was out of contract at the time. And Gordon phoned me to come over and speak to him, which I said yeah I did. So I came back over then. I went to speak on the Monday, I think it was. And the meeting on the 4th of June, when they made an offer an extra year, blah blah blah. I went to see Gordon about it on the Monday after that. So the 4th was the Thursday Friday. So I went to see him on the Monday, and they just asked me. I didn't get the impression that he really wanted me. You know, I said, look, you started talking about other players they were identifying. I said, yeah, what about me? And he said, yeah, it's the first offer. I said, but it's getting to the middle of June. My wife was expecting a baby, and I said, look, I watched other players get contracts in January with John and Bobo.
Yeah.
I kept my mouth shut, got on with my job. I thought I had a good season again. I thought I deserved at least another couple of years, which I wanted. I wanted 3 before. And he said, well, it's first offer, and blah blah. So they'd, I think, my agent arranged another meeting on the Wednesday, but then they cancelled it. So I thought, right, they're not wanting me. You know, apparently he was going over to speak to, I think it was Saraski at the time, maybe.
Yeah.
So they cancelled the meeting with me. And that's the first time that I said to Dan that they're not wanting me, what's there. I hadn't pushed myself anywhere, I hadn't done anything in the press, I hadn't asked him to go and look at other clubs. And the only one that spoke to him was Glenn Huddle at Wolves.
Yeah.
Trying to get me a few years ago to Tottenham, which I didn't know about. Martin never told me. You know, it's a time when we went down to play Tottenham.
Aye.
Friendly, and Martin never said to me about it. But Glenn phoned me and just look, this is my preference was here. I said my wife's expecting a baby any day now. But I said, they're not wanting me. I don't get the impression they want me here. It's now getting to the middle of June. It should have been sorted out in January, but I tried to keep my out, didn't say anything about it. And then, so I went down to see him. I phoned Peter and said, look, I want this done by tomorrow, or he's going to speak to Wales. And then he turned around and didn't do it. They said, eventually the next morning, they said something like, phoned on the way down, I was driving down there, but I'd already given my word.
Peter had phoned you on the way down?
Yeah, phoned.
But you were already giving your word to Wales, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we gave him a deadline before, at 6 o'clock. And I think it came out that I was going down to Wales. I'd already said to my family and friends, and said to what I said to Glenn Hoddle I was coming.
Yeah.
I said I'd give them a time scale. I said I don't think I was being unreasonable. I said give them to 6 o'clock the night before to make an offer and what we're looking for. And they said no. So at that point Dan phoned Glenn and said we're down tomorrow, do a medical and speak to you. Which I did. I drove down and left at 6 in the morning. The longest day of my life. Went down there and Peter had phoned Darren and said, look, I didn't offer a 1 year off my tour. I says, well, you did offer me 1 year and you changed it to a 2, but again it's gone now. It's too late. I said, look, it's not about money. I went down to Wales for less money. People, they took the money and run, but I was at Celtic 10 years. I know what my players were on, I know everything else. Everybody looks at it there. And my family know. As I said, people wise took the money. It's never been about that. Never been about that. The principal there, I said he could offer me 30 grand a week at Celtic at that point, along with the other ones, or half that. They offered me half of that. I wouldn't have changed anything. It was nothing. It was never about money. It was about principle and about they gave that guy my word. I gave him the opportunity. And, at that age, obviously I was proven right because I was first to go out of that 5.
Yeah.
The only one that stayed out the 5 was Lenny.
So you obviously knew Gordon was coming previous to public knowing?
No, I think it was announced. It was announced Gordon was coming in. It was announced that week because this was like. It was announced that week. Announced before the last game. It was midweek and he pulled us.
Yeah.
But I think with everything else, if Martin wasn't going, there was no doubt I'd have still been there.
Yeah.
A new guy coming in, obviously brought in somebody new at right back in Telford.
Aye.
Which
consigned us to him for a few years.
And the boy McNamara as well for left back.
Yeah.
But I always remember there because I went down there and you see the pictures when I'm signing for Wales. It should be. So I signed for Wales on a Tuesday. My wife had the baby on Friday.
Yeah.
So kind of uprooted my whole family. It wasn't planned. I hadn't planned to go to England. I wanted to finish my career there. But again, I go back to things I'm meant to be. I went down there and I actually enjoyed certain bits, meeting people, working under Glenn and then Big Mick. Just seeing different sides of that. Hindsight, I always seen it as a massive achievement, being at Celtic for 10 years, and maybe it was for me the right time to go at that point. I remember we played a pre-season game in Holland the night they lost to HailHailMedia 5-0, and I was getting blamed for it, for leaving from then.
That seems to be a common thing with you two, that you get the blame for stuff after you leave places.
I know.
But to kind of bring it back to the both of you, there's one sort of final thing I wanted to ask you is, both your dads played professional football, both you played professional football. Does this mean sons are going to follow on? I know your Sydney plays at Hibs now.
Yeah, I hope so. I think you're asking him really, that's what he wants to do. He's very passionate about it, he's obsessed with it. Everything he does, he's on holiday there. He's definitely got the want, and as Tony would say, the fire in the belly to succeed, and I think he will. I think he will be.
And Sid, 3 chances?
3 chances? The interest there. The interest is there. Two of them playing teams. It's such a difficult thing to go and do. I think in today's climate as well, there's so many distractions with PlayStations and Xboxes. When we were growing up, it was just football 24/7. I would love to see any of them or all of them following their dad's footsteps, but time will tell.
Finally, last question, which is a question I've always wanted to ask Jackie. It's for you specifically. Why are you the godfather and he's the underboss?
In the management,
In life?
just characters. I think.
I mean, you're so similar.
Who's christened him the Godfather?
Well, we'll not come on to that, but I'm only because if I have to speak to him, I would speak through you, which means you're the underboss and he's the godfather.
I'm happy to be the underboss.
So you'll never be a manager, you'll always be his number two.
I don't think. Well, you can never say never, but it's not something that appeals to me. I like to assist him, and I like the role that I've got within the two of us. I see him more of a leader than myself, and that's just the way it's been. It never planned out that way. I don't think we really.
You were really what he didn't you?
That's what we said earlier on, but even when we played, I think there wasn't really.
No.
You know, it was very much a 50-50 thing. We kind of just fell into it.
So he's never put a horse's head in your bed or anything like that?
Not yet.
No, I think for me, I think I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to what I want for the team and what I want for there. And I think Sid's very similar minded for what the beliefs and what we see. You know, and I think that's the biggest thing. I don't want somebody the other side is just to say, you're right, because he doesn't. But I think a lot of times there, you know, it's funny because Dan came in as well, and it's having that other side of it. Dan's more old school, if you like, brought up with the fist, with different managers. We step back from it, and I treat players how I want to be treated, how I want to be respected, how I want to play without fear, to express himself and play the best they can. And in Scotland, as we see, it's cracking a whip, jumping about like a loony outside of the park. But if they're doing their jobs, they don't see me. You look at the best managers in the world. Alex sat in the dugout all the way up the top. You see him. So if people talk about passion and talk about this or jumping about, again, it'll go back to spin doctors, facade nonsense. It's what they do on the pitch, it's the players, it's all about the players, what the players do. We've had our spell in playing, we miss it. I wish I could still play. But the next bit is to pass on our experiences and our wisdom to these boys, and hopefully it's not just about surviving, being in a job for the next 10 years. We don't want that, we've never wanted that. It's about making a difference and helping these young boys or experienced players to achieve what they can. Because effectively we're teachers now. You know, what we were taught through great people like Tommy Burns and everybody else along the way, Martin O'Neill's, Hoddles, we've been very fortunate. It's passing that on, our wisdom, and taking away all the bullshit away from Scottish football and spin that people put out there every game. And the biggest problem with this is social media.
I know that you're quite anti-players, sort of being on Twitter and things like that, because it's kind of negative. And
it's mindset. The mindset there. It's like having a phone number. You know, everybody likes praise. Everybody likes to be told they're good. Nobody likes to be told they're crap.
Yeah.
Even if they're the believer. You know, a couple of idiots go to a game, probably weren't even at the game. Text, put on Twitter, you're crap. You're not good enough for this club. Yeah, they do have a bad game, and then. You know, when we were playing, it was a guy marking you out of 10 in that paper. It probably wasn't even at the game. But I was probably my own worst critic. And different managers would come in and go after the game. Wim Janssen never spoke after the game. So there's wee things there I take from that. I'll say things collectively. But the biggest thing is the players understand themselves.
Yeah.
how they appease your own. Unless you're delusional how you've played on Saturday, how because they get it for all quarters, they get it through the social media, or Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or whatever it is now, and they get it for the media, and they get it for the managers and the family when they go home. For me, is not to lose them, to keep all that nonsense away from them, because they can't influence it. It's not about having you're brilliant today to make you feel good. It's what's in you that matters, and what's in the people working around you to win. It's all about winning.
Fantastic, and I think Jackie just summed up why he is the Godfather.
What a laugh,
Well, lads, thank you very much. I'm sure our listeners will appreciate that, and see you all again soon.